Welcome to the season opening round of the 2015 Audi R8 LMS Cup here at Zhuhai International Circuit in southern China. And the series, now in its fourth season, has many familiar faces, but there are also many new teams and drivers that will be joining us together and competing together in 12 different races over 6 rounds across Asia. Once again, I'm sure we're about to enjoy a fantastic season of racing. We'll again provide you with all the action from each round, and this year there will be an addition to our presenting team with our race series reporter Mark Dreyer. Hello Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi Sophie, thanks. Yeah, it's great to be here, and I can tell you we've had a very exciting morning already, and I'll be back in just a few moments' time to tell everyone about the first ever Super Bowl qualifying session that we've had and how they line up on the grid. But for the moment, let's send it back upstairs to our men in the booth to take you through their next few minutes of action.
Hello and welcome to the program. For the first time since the series inception in 2012, the series begins here at Zhuhai in southern China. 20 cars are entered for the first round of the 2015 Audi R8 LMS Cup, with 6 of those drivers making their debut in the series, although all of them will be chasing the #1 car of the 2014 champion, Malaysia's Alex Yoong. There'll be some hard-fought racing across the coming 12 rounds, although in perhaps frustrating news for his opponents, Alex Yoong has been the most successful driver at Zhuhai in recent years, winning 3 of the last 4 events held here. Before all the action gets underway, let's take a look back at some of the highlights of the 2014 season.
Heading into the final race weekend of the year in Abu Dhabi, Alex Yoong was at the top of the standings, just 7 points ahead of Andre Couto. Both had 4 wins, but both also had their issues, with Yoong involved in a multi-car pile-up in Fuji, while Couto was taken out in the opening race of the season and also struggled in Japan. Those two started round 11 in first and second, with Andre Couto on pole ahead of his rival Yoong. But there was drama at the start as Yoong edged ahead of Couto too soon, and he would later be assessed a 25-second penalty. Couto took the win, and though Alex Yoong crossed in third, his time penalty pushed him down to 6th. That gave Couto an 11-point cushion in the standings, knowing that a top 3 finish in the season finale would guarantee him the title. Couto had the perfect start from pole position, with Alex Yoong right behind him, and Yoong soon passed Couto to hit the front. As Couto looked to regain the lead, it was turning into an incredible battle. But the turning point of the race and of the championship came in the final few laps, as Couto went off track to pass Yoong, but he failed to give back the place and would later draw a 25-second penalty after a lengthy review. Yoong again passed Couto to retake the lead and took the win, though Couto celebrated, believing that his second place was enough to give him the title. However, the stewards had no choice but to overturn the result, moving Couto down to 9th and giving Yoong the championship by 12 points. Thank you. Well, yes, we've just had our first ever Super Pole qualifying session earlier today. Very exciting, because what happens is that everyone gets a 15-minute qualifying session, and then the fastest 8 cars then get 1 lap to set the quickest that they can do, and they go in reverse order for that top 8 sessions, and then that is the order. So initially in that first session, we had Marchi Li, Alex Yoong and Rahul Fry as the top 3, but it was Rahul Fry who nailed it in that Super Pole qualifying session, and she will start from pole position, followed by Alex Yoong on the front row of the grid. Then comes newcomer Aditya Patel and Marchi Li. Another newcomer, Thomas Fjordbach, is in 5th, with KOU in 6th. Sean Tong comes in 7th, with Stefano Montesi, initially the 4th quickest, did very, very well in that first session, but he starts in 8th. And that actually meant that a couple of surprising people were left out of the top 8. Among them, Frankie Chung, just by a fraction of a second. And I was standing next to Kimi Chin, just as he was edged out of that top 8 in the initial session. He was very disappointed. He starts in 10th. Further down the grid, we have Jeffrey Lee in 11th, Alex Au, Ashraf Deval, Samson Chan, Sam Locke, Johnson Huang, Daniel Bilski, Hugo Repair, Tommy Wong, and Jackie Young in 20th. Let's send it back up to the men upstairs for the rest of the action.
First opened in 1996, the 4.31 kilometre 14-turn Zhuhai circuit was designed by the same team that developed the Adelaide Formula 1 Grand Prix in Australia. Featuring a clockwise rotation, there are 9 right-hand corners, 5 left-hand corners, and despite the main straight being 900 metres in length, the drivers will not reach 6th gear. hitting just under 250 kilometres an hour as they come into the braking marker at turn 1. The weather for the opening round looks like it's going to be pretty clear, with temperatures in the low to mid-20s, but relatively high humidity. Although we're not expecting rain during either of this weekend's 2 races. It's looking pretty good there on the grid. We will now close down to René Kronenberg down on the grid with Sophie.
Hi René, welcome to the show again. A 2015 season. What are the new features?
The new features, we did a technology update on the car. So the rear ring went a little bit more to the back. We have also a new feature that actually we changed the tires. So there are now 2 tires the drivers can use, and this is quite a strategic element. And another strategic element is obviously that we installed a Super Pole. And within the Super Pole, I think now the driver really has to think about it, when to use the push-to-passes. And we saw it already in the qualifying, that some drivers were trying to save a lot of push-to-passes when they come to the Super Pole. But there's always a danger that you will not make it, yeah, like Frankie did. So I think these strategic elements make it much, much more interesting for the viewers, but also for the drivers, because they have to think constantly what they're doing. And so I'm very, very happy with all the features, and I'm looking forward for a really great race. Very excited actually to be back on the racetrack.
Sounds so great, and we're looking forward to see what kind of new features going to add more excitement to the Cup. And now cross over to our commentator.
Before we look at the list of exactly what's gone on, let's have a look at what is the basis of Audi R8 LMS Cup. What forms the program for what the drivers will be facing. Up to 22 cars will compete in 12 races across 6 venues in Asia during the 2015 season. Races this year will be held in South Korea, Taiwan, Malaysia, Japan and China, which will see the season opener in Zhuhai and the final round in Shanghai. All drivers will compete in identical Audi R8 LMS GT3 race cars, with fields made up of both professional and amateur drivers, and we'll explain a little bit more about that during the program. And each race will feature 2 30-minute sprint races. The first race will feature a rolling start, and the second, in a new initiative for 2015, will feature a standing start. Every sport needs the rules and regulations of the competition to be administered by to ensure fair and safe racing is always followed. The role is that of the chief steward and the race director, who we spoke to a little bit earlier in the day.
Dennis Carter, Audi R8 race director. My partner in crime is Tony Scott Andrews, who's the series steward.
That's me. I'm the permanent steward for Audi R8.
To make a race run successfully and to run well, there are lots of people behind the scenes. There's obviously all of the marshals all around the circuit and on the start line and in the pit lane. Out on the circuit you have flag marshals giving the flag signals to the drivers so the drivers know what to expect in front of them. You then have incident marshals that deal with cars that are stranded or anything that happens out on circuit. Observers that report back to race control anything that's going on, plus all of the medical staff and all of the people in the pit lane and all of the people on the start line. So lots and lots of people that go to make up a very safe and hopefully a very secure weekend. It's a cast of thousands.
We do a lot, but one of us does more than Dennis does.
The safety car is an Audi R8 V10 engine. Very powerful. The same as that you can buy in your garage, in your Audi garage. It's the same with the same tires as we used on the road.
We use the safety car in 2 ways. We use the safety car at the start of a race, where it will run around the circuit between 70 and 90 kilometres an hour. And then as we approach the start, I try and slow it down. And once we've got the cars in order, the safety car then pulls off and leaves them to take the start on their own. When we then decide to deploy a safety car during a race, we will inform the drivers by flags and boards that the safety car is coming onto track. We'll send the safety car out. We'll then normally try and run the safety car not at race pace but fairly fast except for through the area where the incident is that's caused the safety car in the first place. Once we've cleared up the incident, then we inform the drivers that the safety car is coming in by turning the lights off, so they will know the moment the lights go off on the safety car that at the end of that lap it's going to pull off and come in. And that's basically how a safety car works. The yellow flag is probably the most commonly used flag. That's the flag that warns the drivers there's danger ahead or there's a problem ahead. They should slow down and be prepared to stop. If they see a blue flag, it means there's a car trying to overtake them. They should be aware of that. If they see a red and white flag, it means the slippery surface. A green flag means the track is clear. And obviously the one they all want to see is the checkered flag, which means the race is finished.
He has lots of flags. I have only one. I have the black flag. Because it's the end of the driver's race. He has to come in and stop. If the race director picks something up, he wants us to investigate, and we will interview the drivers, look at video evidence. There's in-car video footage, there's circuit CCTV footage, and we make a decision based on the evidence we have, and hopefully the right one.
I determine whether an offence has been committed. If I believe it has, then I give it to my learned friend here, who deliberates for hours and hours and hours and then makes a decision.
He's the policeman, I'm the judge, I suppose.
Who can do the better job? We both have an important job to do. Obviously I can't say it's me, but it would be.
Welcome back. We're getting very close to the rollout lap now. The safety car will lead the field of 20 cars around this 4.3 kilometre Zhuhai circuit. The cars will form up for a rolling start. Today we have rolling start. Tomorrow, of course, is the new innovation for 2015 with a standing start. So that'll be interesting for all these drivers who have been so used to a rolling start over recent seasons. Now we're assuming that's not spots of rain on the windscreen of the camera car there. Lights on for the safety car. They're about ready to get underway. 30 minutes race duration. If we don't have a safety car, we're looking at something in the vicinity of 18 laps. If we do have a safety car, well, anything goes. We will just see how things play out. Now, as Mark said earlier today, Rahel Frey put her Castrol Audi R8 LMS onto pole position. The first time she has been on pole position in the last 2 seasons that she has been a part of the Audi R8 LMS Cup series. And she admitted to me earlier today that it was actually the first time in a GT car that she had actually taken pole position. So she was very excited. Of course, strategy played a part in that, with when to play the push to pass in the new Super Pole shootout, the 8 cars that made Super Pole. She was the 3rd last car out onto the field and set the pace. Marchie Lee, who was quickest in timed qualifying in the first 15-minute session, he was unable to improve his position and had to settle for a second row start. Of course, reigning champion, and the man who has won 3 of the last 4 races here at Zhuhai, Alex Jung, will start alongside her, and that will make things very interesting. You see drivers weaving on the circuit. That is in an attempt to get tyre temperature into this new Michelin S9L tyre that they are running this year. We say new, it's the same tyre as they used last year, but there's a slightly different compound. There you see the 14 turns of this circuit. The thing to note, and this is a very unique circuit in the Asian region, is there are 5 stop corners. When we say stop corners, what we're explaining is corners that the drivers are actually braking very, very heavily. Data shows 248 to 250 kilometres an hour at the end of the front straight, 900 metres long, 5th gear. They don't get beyond 5th gear, they don't hit top gear on this circuit, spend a lot of time running between 2nd gear in the slower speed corners and 5th gear on the run up to the short straights, the end of the short straights, and into another 2nd gear corners. There's a lot of shifting between 2nd and 5th. The lights are off on the safety car. That signals that their intent is to start this race next time round. And we will see whether or not Rahel Frey is able to hold out the position of car number 1. Of course, Alex Jung, former Formula 1 driver, the Malaysian, has driven at all the major circuits around the world and does enjoy this Zhuhai circuit. Forming up in rows of 2 as per their qualifying positions. Rahel Frey will control the start of this race as they come to the final corner, ready for the start. When she accelerates, the rest of the field can accelerate, but not beyond that point. She must get to the control line that signals the start of this race in first position for it to be a legal start, and they will be underway. So here we are, the start of the 2015 Audi R8 LMS Cup season, and I can hear them accelerating as they come towards the line. Rahel Frey made the most of Superpole on cold tyres, or cooler tyres, in the break between sessions, so she should be able to control the start on the run into turn one. Keeps the inside line, even though Alex Young got slightly alongside. Brake lock-up. She's run wide going to turn one. That's opened the door for Alex Young. And right behind her, Aditya Patel, in his maiden run here in Audi R8 LMS, has taken position 2 away. No, she hasn't. He hasn't. He's holding on to position 3. Marchie Lee looking at an inside run into turn 4. Going around the outside there, that may well be Frankie Chung, who had a disappointing run in qualifying to be back into position number 9. He's up to 5th already. It was Frankie Chung that's moved in behind Aditya Patel. Marchie Lee back behind them now, and Thomas Fjordbach, a young driver, Danish driver, making his debut here this weekend in the orange and black car. There's a little bit of bashing going on a little bit further in the pack. That's Kyung Yuk Yu in the Audi Korea car. You see him just look at the inside run there, and that's a very wide run. Stefano Matesi has run deep into the gravel. That's at turn number 10. That may well bring out the first safety car. That was an unusual run in there. He didn't seem to be able to pull the car around to the left. So he has dropped down the order. You see almost 3 wide. That's Ashraf Dawal in the black and pink car, the Malaysian driver, the amateur class driver fighting for position. So 3 wide there. Now Alex Young is making the most of his opportunity at the front of the field. We're talking about push to pass earlier. We'll explain a bit more about that during the coverage. But what that means is the drivers have the ability to pull up an extra 50 horsepower by hitting a switch on the steering wheel. That 50 horsepower gives them 10 seconds of additional power, but there is one catch. They can only use that 15 times during this race, so they have to choose their moment. After qualifying on pole, that's Ashraf Dawal, a spun coming through turn 1. That's not what we want to see. Looked like Jackie Young, who was bringing up the tail of the field there, has gone through, so there shouldn't be too much interference with Dewell. Hopefully he's able to turn the car the right way around and rejoin. That would be frustration for him, a guy that likes to smile a lot, who's still smiling after qualifying, although he admitted he didn't get the most out of the car. But hopefully this keeps the smile on his face, even though that will force him back in the pack. This year, another newer innovation, 2 sets of tyres. Last year they had to be a little cautious as the yellow flags there fly for Stefano Matesi, who's buried in the gravel there at turn number 4. In fact, that's turn number 10. Disappointment for Ashraf Dewal. He will recover from that. He has been one of the leading contenders in the last couple of seasons in the amateur class, of course, pro and amateur class. So with push to pass, they can choose their time. Interestingly, after qualifying, the comment from Swiss driver Rahel Frey, the only female in the field this year, was that she was planning to use a lot of her push to pass to break away from the pack if she could control the lead into turn 1. Unfortunately, as we saw, she locked the brakes heading into turn 1 on cold tyres. We'll talk about tyre temperature a little bit later, and that allowed Alex Young to run through. Now it appears she's starting to use her push to pass because she's closed right onto the tail of the number 1 car of Alex Young, the Audi Tita Racing Team car. As we see further back, that is Johnson Huang having a look at the inside of Sam Locke on the run into turn 1. Behind, side by side, there's been another spinner. That's the Australian Daniel Bilski in the Be Quick Racing Team out of Thailand. It's nice to see them join the series this year, the first independent team to join the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Of course, it has been opened up to other teams this year to run in the series. In past years, of course, it has been all run by Audi themselves. You see Montesi in the background there being extracted from the gravel down at turn number 4, which in fact is turn number 10. Sorry about that. He has had his car recovered. Of course, that will all but end his opportunity this race. He will be back to fight again. The beauty of this series is he'll be back again to fight tomorrow in the second of the 30-minute races. Still looking very racy at the front of the field, Rahel Frey. Not getting too far in arrears from Alex Young, who continues to control the field at the front. Behind them, of course, that is the debutant in this series, who has been very impressive. He topped private practice here just a week ago. It was the first official session for Audi R8 LMS for the season. That's unfortunate. That's the 33 car of Tommy Wong, the teammate to Sam Locke we saw fighting there. Now, is that his teammate, the 36 car that stopped behind? It is, in fact, the two speed racing cars. Star Speed cars have both made contact on the circuit, which is frustration for them. But Aditya Patel's been very impressive, very quick in practice. He was right up there in the mix during qualifying, and it's nice to see him holding on to third position there ahead of Frankie Cheung, who's recovered, of course, from the frustration of being only ninth after his qualifying session, unable to make the first shootout for Audi R8 LMS this year, despite being the pole sitter in the 2014 season at the opening round in South Korea. So still, it's Alex Jung at the front of the field. We're 6 minutes into this race now. Rahul Frey there in position number 2 as we're looking at an onboard replay. This might give us some indication as to what happened further up in the field. Safety car. There's enough cars that are actually off the circuit at present to enforce the safety car period, as Daniel Bilski's the first car back across the line, but currently a little bit further back in the field after spinning at turn 1. So it's Alex Jung, Rahul Frey, Aditya Patel, Frankie Cheng, Marchi Lee, and Kimi Chin, who's been very impressive, the former Formula Renault Asia open wheel driver. He's been very impressive so far on his debut. He is running, of course, the number 6 SSC Sports Car Club Audi R8 as we see the leaders coming through. It's the safety car now following Daniel Bilski, allowed him through onto the tail of the lead lap. Coming through turn 4, you can see race leader Alex Jung a little bit further back. Not unusual at the start of a new series, especially with new entrants into the category. Only two 30-minute practice sessions prior to qualifying to see drivers just finding their feet with the new car. Talking to a number of the series regulars, they admitted that the Audi R8 has been one of the most fantastic cars to drive as a gentleman or amateur driver. Very forgiving and very able to provide them with the sweet spot to be competitive against the more professional drivers. In a number of series where the cars are perhaps a little bit more difficult to drive, you'll see a larger gap between the pro class and the amateur class drivers. Now, whilst we quickly talk about that, have a look at the numbers on the windscreens of each of the cars. Where the number's white, that signifies it is a pro driver. Now, pro driver is essentially classified as a driver that is paid to drive, or whether that's sponsorship or whether that is by a team that has put that driver behind the wheel. An amateur driver is essentially a driver who has had to find the funds to compete, quite often gentlemen drivers. We are going to talk to Mark down in pit lane and find out exactly what's going on down there.
We're still a little bit in the dark because of the 3 cars that have been spinning so far out on the track. That's Jeffrey Lee, Tommy Wong and Stefano Montesi. None of them have come into the pits yet, so we haven't had a chance to ask the drivers or their teams exactly what happened. The safety car, as you can see, is still out, so hopefully it won't be out for too long and we can get back to racing. Shouldn't affect the front of the field too much, and hopefully we can get it underway. As soon as we have any more information, we'll get it straight to you.
Thanks, Mark. That gives us a little bit of an indication as to what's going on. It doesn't appear to be any kind of mechanical trouble or contact, an accident on circuit. It quite simply could be that is the new tyre that these drivers are coming to terms with. We talked about the Michelin S9 tyre. It is the control and exclusive tyre for the Audi R8 LMS Cup series. But there has been a slight change to the compound in the last 12 months. Certainly it is a little different to the tyre from last year. And what the drivers are reporting is that it takes a little bit more time for them to get tyre temperature right up to where they need it to be, which comes down to grip. What they mean by cold tyres is they need to get the temperature up to the tyre so it optimises the grip level and the way the car sticks to the circuit. So when that grip level isn't at the temperature it needs to be, often you'll find the cars will spin, and that may explain why it is some of the perhaps lesser experienced drivers in the field that have had an incident during the early laps of this race. Of course, the bulk of the field is still continuing to circulate, with the exception, of course, of Stefano Montesi, who's a very experienced campaigner, has been involved in this series for the last couple of years. And he was saying to me only yesterday that he has chosen to be a pro driver, even though he could essentially qualify as an amateur driver, because he likes the competition against the leading drivers in the field. His aim for the weekend was to qualify in the top 8 and make the first Super Pole shootout. He qualified 4th, which was extremely impressive. He was very happy with himself and had come to grips with the car fairly quickly across the weekend, and the new tyre and the dynamics that has on the field. Now, safety car has pulled off. Alex Jung is back in control of the field, and coming into the final turn, he has a very good lead ahead of Rahel Frey. He obviously anticipated when things were going to happen, and he was right on the money. He's crossing the line. He's already a second up on Rahel Frey, and that will take some time to pull back in. So it's Alex Jung, Rahel Frey, Aditya Patel, Frankie Cheng still holding on 4th position. And there is Thomas Fjordbach, the young Danish driver who very nearly won the GTM class of the GT Asia series in a Ferrari last year. He has taken that position away from his fellow series debutant, Kimi Chin. See them further back in the field, back behind Marchi Lee in the double duck Audi Hong Kong car, the dark car there in the background. So it's the number 1, the 66, the number 8 of Aditya Patel, and the 99 of Frankie Cheng. Of course, a number of those drivers are race winners in this series already over the last couple of years. Alex Jung was a 5-time winner last year. Rahel Frey has been very competitive in recent years and finished 3rd in the championship last year. So it's nice to see Aditya Patel, the Indian driver, the first Indian driver in the series, as we see the number 11 car of KOU running very deep there in the South Korean car, the Audi Korea R8 LMS at turn 4. So that's frustration for him to be trying to make up positions. Very quick during qualifying, very quick during practice, as now Aditya Patel is applying a fair bit of pressure to the rear of that green Castrol liveried Audi R8 of Rahel Frey. So we've been talking about tyres, we're talking about push to pass. They have 15 opportunities to gain 10 seconds of an additional 50 horsepower, or around 38 kilowatts in modern terms. So the drivers will be choosing when or where they are going to use that. We see that Samson Chan, a driver who has immense experience in all kind of GT cars, just being taken back for position by KOU. Still, you can see that the grip level might not quite be up to temperature yet. A little bit skatey as he came in under brakes. Johnson Huang immediately behind them. But up front, the very experienced Alex Jung. And I was very impressed to see it a number of occasions when I went down to the garage across the weekend. So far, Alex has been working through data, he's been working with his engineers, he's been sitting in the car getting a feel for it. A very, very hands-on driver, of course, very experienced, competed in Formula One, has competed in Le Mans, and very, very famous driver in this part of the world. As Marchi Lee takes a dive down the inside of Frankie Cheng, and he will hopefully pull it up in time. He's trying to protect position. It was a little bit aggressive by Marchi Lee this early in the race as Frankie Cheng makes the position back through. Of course, these two drivers know a lot about each other's driving styles, and they will have faced situations like this in the past many times. In fact, they will be co-drivers this year when they make their debut at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. Frankie Cheng and Marchi Lee will be joined by Sean Thong and also by the race leader of this race and reigning champion Alex Jung behind the wheel of an Audi R8 LMS Ultra, and what they call the Green Hell, the magnificent German circuit, the Nürburgring. So they will be competing as teammates. They'll be trying very carefully not to put each other on the wrong foot as Marchi Lee dives across and closes the door hard on Frankie Cheng on the run into turn 1. Frankie knows what this is all about. He's been here before, so he'll just sit and hold his time. Again, there might have been a little bit of push to pass in that opportunity. Marchi may have used his up. Frankie may have some in reserve. he will bring that into play a little bit later in this race. So still it's Alex Young at the front of the field. He's holding a nice comfortable buffer over Rahel Frey now. She is still in position number 2. Aditya Patel still applying pressure to the rear of her Castrol Audi R8. Frankie Cheng still there holding position over Marchi Lee. Actually, Marchi has changed that position, I beg your pardon. Right behind them though, Thomas Fjordbach is doing a magnificent job, and he still has Kimi Chin right behind him. So it's interesting to see these young guys. There's 3 of them now inside the top 7 that are rookies to this series, and they're doing a magnificent job so far. Ashraf Diwal, he had that spin, but the one fortunate side of the unfortunate incident of a safety car is that the field manages to group back up again, and he's now holding a position immediately behind Hugo Repair, the man from Spark Models, very famous in this part of the world. His factory's just 15 minutes down the road from the Zhuhai circuit. He has made his return to the Audi R8 LMS Cup after a sabbatical of a bit over a year and a half. Enjoys getting himself back behind the wheel of an Audi R8, and admitted he'd only just done this deal on Thursday night. So he had an unfortunate incident during first practice. He couldn't quite get the laps he needed. They needed to make some changes to the car, and by second practice he was very competitive again, the amateur driver. So the pro drivers have the white numbers on their windscreen. We can see 3 cars there in a row that have the yellow numbers on the windscreen. They are competing for the amateur trophy, of course, this weekend. And there are 4 different categories that teams are competing for across the weekend. And we'll just run through those. Of course, the pro category for the pro teams. Then we have the amateur cup. We also have the team's trophy, the team's award, which was won by the brothers racing team that isn't here sadly this year. That was the team of Andre Couto, who finished runner-up in the championship last year. And then we have the 4 Rings trophy, which is a dealer award, of which a number of cars in the field are competing for. So Alex Young now 1.6 seconds up. A 1:34.8 is his best time so far. That's getting very close to one of the fastest qualifying times we've seen around the Zhuhai circuit for the Audi R8 LMS, which was a 1:34.3. So very quick times. 1:35.4 for Rahel Frey. So 1.6 seconds now, the lead that Alex Young has. And this will be the perfect start to his championship. The one downside is another of the features of the Audi R8 LMS is that they must carry a success penalty, which comes in terms of additional weight for the second race. 50 kilos will be loaded on board Alex Young's car if, in fact, as we see, that was the number 12 car, Alex Au, who's one of the leading amateur drivers. He's just managed to keep the car in a straight line, was trying to get through on Sean Thong there into turn 1, but unfortunately for him, that did not work out. Now, Mark might have a little bit more news for us down in pit lane. Let's cross down to him and see what's going on.
Well, there's a lot of nervous faces down here in the pit lane because it's getting to the business end of this first race of the season. Still 17 cars out on the track with Alex Young, of course, after that early lead into turn 1 from Rahel Frey at the front. But still a lot of changes. Alex Au, we just saw a moment ago, as losing a couple of places with a mistake there on the track. So everything to play for still as we go into the final few laps. And let's see what happens. Back to the commentator.
Well, it's still Alex Young leading the field. There's a little bit of competition going on still with Johnson Huang. That is the number 3 car. We're talking about Hugo Repair earlier. And Johnson Huang's gone very wide and run off the circuit. That's not what he needed to do. That's given position away to both Hugo Repair and to Ashraf Diwal, who's trying to recover from that earlier spin. So that's for positions number 12, 13 and 14. So that moves Hugo Repair up to position 12 in the amateur leg. Leader in the amateur leg is Alex Au, who was just outside the top 6. His spin has unfortunately dropped, or his off-track excursion rather, has dropped him a little bit further down the order. He's currently holding position 9, but still retains the lead of the amateur leg of this race. That is Samson Chan immediately in front of these guys. We're talking about Samson earlier, lives in Hong Kong. The Canadian driver has competed in a wide range of GT competition around this region over many years, but strangely to everybody, he's never competed in an Audi R8 LMS Cup. In fact, he's never even driven one of the new spec Audi R8s, and he admitted that it was a fantastic car to drive. And even though he had some dramas in his first session, the drama being that he missed it, by the second session he'd managed to get his head around it. He qualified very, very nicely, which was great to see. Samson Chan qualified in position number 14, and currently in this race he's just off the tail of the top 10, so he'll be very happy with his performance. It's likely to only be a one-off so far, but he likes the series so much so far that he may be a regular part of this. Of course, we expect up to 22 cars at most of the events across the 12 races this year. Position number 11, Samson Chan second in the AM class. 5 minutes to go in this race, 10 minutes to go still in this race. There's 20 minutes down on the clock. It appears to be 5 laps left in this race. Still at the front of the field is Alex Young. Now, what the rest of the teams are going to do about this, we don't know. Perhaps that 50 kilogram penalty that he will take for winning this race might have an effect for race 2. He said to me just yesterday that last year he did take an option as Alex Au pulls into pit lane. There's obviously a greater issue there with a CTVS Audi, the blue and yellow car that's just pulling into pit lane. Alex Young was suggesting that last year at times he said, Sean, I'd rather finish second than win a race on some occasions, knowing that I would carry what was a 60 kilogram penalty last year as Ashraf Diwal closes in on the back of Hugo Repair. The front discs glowing bright red, which has a lot to do with the number of very heavy stops they have to make on this track, as we see Alex Au pull into pit lane and what looks like almost certain retirement. That's frustration for him, but he, like the others, and Stefano Matesi, who was off the circuit earlier in this race, will be back again for the second race tomorrow, the second 30-minute race. 35 kilos is the weight penalty for the second place finisher of this race. So we're talking about Alex Young, as again we look at Ashraf Diwal dive up the inside a little bit sideways. That's oversteer on the exit of turn 1 there as he gets back on the gas, and that has allowed Johnson Huang to close in again on the rear of Ashraf Diwal and look to try and take another position away. Currently Diwal holding down position 12. So if the finishing positions remain Alex Young, Rahul Frey and Aditya Patel for first, second and third, Alex Young will incur a 50 kilogram weight addition for race 2. Rahul Frey will incur a 35 kilogram weight penalty, and Aditya Patel will incur a 20 kilogram weight penalty. Now last year that was a very big issue. It was a slightly higher weight. They have reduced that. It's a new change for 2015 for this season. But also last year they had one set of tyres to complete the two 30-minute races. This year they have two sets of the new Michelin tyres. So after this race they can take these tyres off and apply the tyres that they may have qualified on, or they may be brand new sticker tyres or green tyres as they are often called, and that will give them another fresh run. One of the changes that again a number of the drivers have spoken about since practice and qualifying is that this newer 2015 specification of Michelin tyre doesn't have a great drop-off. The word drop-off tends to suggest that it will fall away, and that's exactly what they're talking about. The lap times do not fall away, as both Ashraf Diwal and Johnson Huang run very wide on the exit of turn number 4. Fortunately, there's plenty of runoff there, and they're able to rejoin without losing too much speed. Frankie Cheng still holding down position number 5. Of course, Marchi Lee had made his way past in a double duck Hong Kong Audi. Double duck, a new gaming system that is about to come online. Very interesting livery for the Hong Kong driver, as we see again Alex Young with 24 minutes now down on the clock. The Malaysian driver, discs glowing red, turns into turn 1, and Rahul Frey followed by the Indian driver Aditya Patel. Down to mark in pit lane.
Well, I just had a quick word with Alex Dow from the CTVS racing team. His car behind me. He was telling me as he got out of the car, he just had an issue with his brakes. Wasn't entirely sure what it was, but didn't want to take too many chances at this late stage in the race. He'd had a similar incident, he said, a couple of years ago, and so he'd taken the decision to retire and just play it safe, which understandable given the circumstances. So just a few more laps to go, so back to the commentator for the final few laps.
Thanks, Mark. That does explain a number of things, and as we were explaining earlier, braking is a big issue here. 5 very hard braking points on this 4.3 kilometre Zhuhai circuit. As we see now, Aditya Patel closing in once more on the rear of Rahel Frey. We're talking about push to pass. He may well have saved some of those up for the closing stages of this race. Very talented young Indian driver, has been driving an Audi R8 Ultra, a GT3 car in Europe over the last couple of seasons in the ADAC GT Masters, which is essentially the German GT3 Touring Car Championship, and also in the GT3 Sports Car Championship rather, and also in the GT Open category in Europe, and been very, very successful, running very strongly with Cesar Campanico over there again in an Audi R8 Ultra. So it looks as if he has in fact saved some of those opportunities to get that extra boost of 50 horsepower, as Rahel looks like she's running there a little bit too deep. Has that opened the door for Aditya in the run down to turn 3? It certainly looks like it has. Will he take the position away? No, she's managed to come through and hold that out. He only has so many opportunities. She may well too have kept push to pass opportunities to save for the end of this race. Very cunning driver, of course a former DTM, German touring car driver for Audi. She has been very quick here over the last couple of seasons and a regular on the podium. 3rd place last year just goes to show how competitive she really is. So she's no stranger to these guys either. She hasn't seen much of Aditya, was very impressed with his relaxed nature. She said she believed that his driving style very perfectly suited the Audi R8 LMS Cup. So we'll see how that plays out, but certainly for the young Indian driver driving for Audi India, this is a fantastic start to his season to potentially be in the running to finish on the podium first year in. Windscreen wiper going. Hopefully that's no sign of any precipitation coming from above. We don't want to see the weather impact this race so late, with just 26, nearly 27 minutes now down on the clock. There's a couple of laps left before the end of this race, but Alex Jung still manages to get away. The one thing the team's fighting behind him over track position is doing is allowing him to continue to open that gap and take the lead. Oh, checkered flag time. Checkered flag. So that is Alex Jung has taken the victory first time out to defend his 2014 championship win. Rahel Frey, position number 2, and a brilliant driver. We were just talking about him, Aditya Patel, taking position number 3 from Marchi Lee, with Frankie Cheng hanging on to position 5. Nice drive for Thomas Fjordbach to finish in position number 6, the second of the rookie drivers, just ahead of Kimi Chin, of course the former Asian Formula Renault open wheel driver, finishing in position 7. Sean Tong, a nice drive for him too on his return to Audi R8 LMS Cup. Of course, the driver that will make his debut in Audi TT in the next couple of weeks in Europe as part of the One Make series. So that wasn't a bad race for the opening leg here at Zhuhai International Circuit in China. Nice to see Alex Jung start his season and open his bill just the way he'd finished the 2014 season. Nice too to see a raft of younger drivers coming through that have joined this series for the first time, getting on top of the car and the setup to be able to contend. But that's only race 1. We have a second race tomorrow, another 30 minutes, another potential 18 laps. We saw about 14 laps that time round, 15 laps rather. Jeffrey Lee, another driver who unfortunately didn't make it past the opening lap, was another race winner, former race winner in Audi R8 LMS Cup. So as we have a quick review, Alex Jung was the victor by just over a second from Rahel Frey, the pole sitter. Aditya Patel, the Indian driver, position 3. From Marchi Lee, Frankie Cheng, Thomas Fjordbach, Kimi Chin, Sean Tong came through in position number 8. KOU had a drama early in the race that dropped him down the order, finished at position 9, and the leading amateur driver in the end was Samson Chan after the retirement of Alex Au. Nice job by all of those guys. So we're seeing the leading teams come into pit lane to the applause of the fans and the assembled teams. A nice drive for Alex Young and very, very well deserved. That is the way the series should play out. The drivers the most committed, that have done the job, done the homework, have the experience, have come out on top of the opening race. But it's a long season. There's 11 races to go. Certainly number one, that's his car number one today. And a very nice job by Rahul Frey to come through in position 2, and Aditya Patel, a very, very impressive drive to be across the line in position number 3. As we say, Samson Chan making his debut, and it may be the first of many races in Audi R8 LMS Cup after his debut, has finished as the leading amateur driver. So that was a fantastic run too for him. So we're very close to going down to talking to Alex Young, Rahul Frey and Aditya Patel. Marchi Lee, a nice job to finish again in position number 4 in the double duck Audi Hong Kong car. We're down to Sophie Lee now, speaking with race winner Alex Young.
Alex, congratulations! And you took the lead from the start. Talk us through the first turn.
Well, I wasn't planning to attack so hard on the first lap because
We'll get the link back there very quickly with Sophie Lee and race winner Alex Young. But a great first race here at this Zhuhai circuit. We're down back to Sophie. Second interview with Rahul Frey, the pole sitter, who finished second in this opening race. We saw Rahul start very strongly, but unfortunately locked a brake going into turn 1, and that's all it took. In the past, last season, we saw the pole sitter of every race go on to win race 1. So it was obviously a good opportunity to have that situation for Rahul Frey, who's now with Sophie down in pit lane.
Rahul started from the first and ended in second. Are you a little bit disappointed?
Yes, for sure. I mean, what Alex did at the start was pretty impressive. He made it there, he made the move there, and I have to say really congratulations to Alex. Afterwards I couldn't catch him. We are at a similar speed, but he just made it at the start, so well done.
But second place is also good for the start of the whole season, right? Back to our commentator. Thank you.
Nice result for Rahul Frey. She's obviously very, very frustrated not to have followed through on what had happened last year with the pole sitter being the race winner in every one of the 6 events in the 2014 season. But she will certainly be back. She'll obviously start from position number 2 in a standing start tomorrow. So there will be an interesting addition to the program for the second race here at Zhuhai with a standing start, the very first standing start in the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Now we're back to Sophie with third placed Geta.
Atidia, and the first podium of the whole season, but you seem pushing hard for the second place.
Yeah, I kind of tried to plan it till the end. I was looking at the number of laps counting down, so I was saving my push to pass, just hoping that the guys in front were using it quite a bit, and it kind of worked, but I couldn't pull off the move. I had 2 push to pass left on the last lap. But I kind of learned from that, so tomorrow if I'm in such a situation, I know what to do.
Thank you so much, and back to our commentator.
Thank you.
That's a very nice result. Very relaxed driver. Again, Rahul Frey had said prior to the race that she felt that the attitude and the approach of Aditya Patel perfectly suited the Audi R8 LMS Cup series, and that his driving style, which she thought was very relaxed, was the way to approach these cars. Some drivers, we're talking about the tyre temperature and getting the tyres up to speed and understeer, whether they prefer understeering cars, whether they prefer oversteering cars, or whether they prefer neutral cars. She said, look, I'm a oversteer fan, probably comes from my time with the DTM series, with the big V8 engine and lots of power through the rear wheels. Because at 560 brake horsepower, there's no lack of power from an Audi R8 V10. However, she felt that she preferred the oversteering car, the understeering performers, the drivers that prefer a car that is probably a little more predictable in the sense of turn in and they know what the car's going to do. An oversteering car often is considered loose by some and not quite as controllable. It depends on what style you prefer. Marchi Lee's one of those who likes an understeering car, and he was certainly right on the money very early in this weekend. Aditya Patel, well, only time will tell exactly what his preference is, but he certainly has performed very, very admirably here this weekend. So it has been a weekend of change. Not only new teams, not only new drivers, but there have also been changes to the regulations. Standing start in race 2 will be very different to what we have experienced previously. However, there are also some technical changes. Well, here we have the podium presentation for the opening round of the Audi R8 LMS Cup 2015 season. Round 1 from Zhuhai in southern China. We saw a great race. Speaking to Rahel Frey earlier, started on pole position, her first pole position in Audi R8 LMS Cup. In fact, her first podium in a pole position rather in a GT car. Unfortunately, allowed Alex Jung to get alongside on the run into turn 1, and a great battle pushed them side by side into turn 1, but Jung took the position away, and from there essentially that was the race run for Rahel Frey. She stuck to the rear of Alex Jung, used her push to pass to compete with the Malaysian driver, the reigning champion of the series, and she pushed him all the way to the line. But they both had enough in reserve that when one challenged, the other was able to make a charge. Crossing over to the podium, and we will introduce the leading drivers. Of course, Alex Jung, Rahel Frey, and the very impressive debutante in this series, Indian driver Aditya Patel. You'll be very happy with his performance.
Fantastic.
What a fantastic season started with the wins of Alex Young, but from the very beginning, Rohofer also showed her great ambition to be the winner. We'll be back here tomorrow for the second round of the 2015 Audi R8 LMS Cup. See you tomorrow.